when you start to sort of live this way intentionally and you see dogs differently and you can relate to them in a different way, it becomes a slippery slope because having more and more dogs gets easier and easier. This is why some of my friends' husbands are like, you can't talk to her anymore. She's a bad influence on you. Yes, today on the podcast, I am a bad influence. But you're here, I'm here. Let's continue our multi-day series on Peace in the Pack, a guide to the multi-dog household. Let's get into it. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. Hey there, friend. You want to know the truth? The truth is your dog is an emotional being. And learning new obedience, well, that's nearly impossible if they're living in a cocktail of stress and anxiety and confusion. Now, I don't say that to make you feel bad. I just say it because it's the truth. And one of the best ways that you can help your dog isn't by teaching them more obedience, because when they're in that emotional perfume, they can't take it in anyway. Instead, what actually helps is learning how to live with your dog intentionally and how to feel more confident in yourself, to be able to trust the fact that you have what it takes to be what your dog needs. Because the truth is, you, my friend, are enough. And I want to show you how. Join me inside the Fearless Framework, a 12-month online coaching program where I can help you and your dog build confidence naturally and start to live beyond obedience. Go to beyondobedience.ca/fearless to join us today. I can't wait to start this journey with you. I'll see you there. Well, hello, my dog-loving friend. It is Tracy. Welcome to Beyond Obedience, the podcast. Super duper welcome if you're brand new. If someone has sent you to this podcast, give them a little extra squish from me. It is my goal to reach as many people as I possibly can, as many dog lovers as I possibly can, to help share the idea around beyond obedience. Of course, that idea being that we're not against obedience, okay? We're not anti-obedience here. We're pro-obedience, but we also want to talk about going beyond obedience. We want people to be able to live with their dogs harmoniously and with ease. And that is, well, honestly, easier than you think. It doesn't mean it's not a lot of work and it's not a bit to get there. I'm just saying it can be so much easier. And so I am all about marrying this idea of obedience and beyond obedience so that living with your dog is easy. If you like obedience, you can still do obedience. If you like doing, all of the trick training, you can still do the trick training. But learning to live with your dog in a way that has mutual respect and understanding, it's trust-based, it's relationship-based, it's a thing of beauty. And that's what I want more. That's what I want for more people. I want this to be easier. I don't want everything to be a grind and a stress for you. I don't want you to be thinking when you get home from work, oh gosh, I got to do training. Got to make sure I remember to do the drills and the stuff. I don't want that for you. I want you to know that, as you move through space, every opportunity that you're with your dog is an opportunity for you to be intentional, to see the dog for who they are, to respond to them, to understand them on a different level. And that's what this podcast is all about. So if you're brand new, welcome. That was a mouthful. So there you go. All right. Now, very, very exciting because today on the podcast, we are continuing our multi-series called Peace in the Pack. Finally, I'm talking about this. This is something that has been on my heart to talk about for a while. If you don't know this about me, I do have multiple dogs. I will say I only have 8 right now, only 8. And to me, that seems incredibly small amount of dogs. Which to some people, I know it sounds a little bit crazy. You're like, 8 dogs, that's a lot. But I will say this, and this I guess is a testament to, everything that you learn here on this podcast. And I've mentioned it as a warning. It's a slippery slope, friends. It's a slippery slope. when you start to sort of live this way intentionally and you see dogs differently and you can relate to them in a different way, it becomes a slippery slope because having more and more dogs gets easier and easier. This is why some of my friends' husbands are like, you can't talk to her anymore. She's a bad influence on you. But it's true. It does get easier. I will tell you that living with 8 dogs for me does not feel like a chore, like a job. Even like feeding rituals, walking rituals, all the things, play rituals, all of those things seem very, very easy to me. And I guess other people find it crazy. Like I open the door and 8 dogs run in and people are like, that's a lot of dogs. I'm like, this is nothing. This is nothing. I had up to 19 at one point. 19 dogs. Now I will be flat out honest. If you're new, they all didn't live in my house. Okay. Back when I had 19 dogs, I was also running my brick and mortar business Beyond Obedience. We ran daycare and boarding and training and pack walks and socialization and all the things. And not all of my dogs lived in the house with me because that would be crazy. My kids were small, that would have been nuts. But all of those dogs did rotate through our house. They were, they had times where they were staying in the house with us and times when they weren't. All of those dogs were also part of our socialization groups. They were part of our play groups. They were part of our pack walks. They integrated with other people's dogs. They were, in all intents and purposes, they were all just good dogs. And so if I can pat myself on the back a little bit, one of the things that I have had the honor of is being able to observe groups of dogs and packs of dogs in different varieties, in different ways. So I've seen, and I've told this story before, but I've got to witness familial packs. I had a breeder male, a breeder female, and offspring at my house. I got to see that beautiful dynamic between an actual family of dogs. And it was life-changing to see how they interacted and so beautiful. I've had the opportunity to have an indoor pack, so living in close proximity with human beings. And I've had the opportunity to watch a pack that didn't have as much human intervention and how they managed themselves and how they solved conflict and all of that stuff. I had the opportunity to work with other people's dogs, integrating them with my pack, integrating them with other packs. I've had that opportunity. I've had the opportunity to see what the pack works like when their humans are present and when their humans are not present, and it's vastly different. You take the human beings that love those dogs out of the picture, you get completely different results. And it's fascinating. It's not good or bad. It's just fascinating. So my point is, I've had the opportunity to sort of sit back and observe so many varieties of how dogs socialize and how they intermingle and how they form connections and bonds that has given me this sort of, I would say, unique. It's not unique. No, there's lots of people that can do this. I'm not saying I'm that special, but I do come from a place of being able to see conflict, help resolve conflict, and more importantly, help avoid conflict when we're talking about creating a peaceful pack in your home. So that's what this series is about. So if you missed the first episode was called The Problem Child, and this idea that quite often the one we think is the problem in the pack, if you're currently struggling with, I like to call them toothy disagreements or stressors or whatnot within your pack, lots of times, more often than not, the one you think is the problem isn't the problem. The one you think is the problem is responding to the problem. That's what's happening. And it's quite common because we humans don't see the canine conversations going on in front of us. we and through no fault of our own, this isn't a judgment thing, but it is what it is, right? If we haven't spent years studying canine communication, how would you know that? But also, we're also very busy, right? We're very busy right nowadays. We're very stressed. The world is crazy. Like, we don't know what's up or down anymore. So we're missing a lot of those conversations. So what ends up happening is that the dog that is having the issue ends up having to be louder, more reactive, because no one heard them the first 72 times they told you that they were getting bullied, they were getting pressured, they were getting, kicked out of their bed, whatever. So that was episode number 1. I don't want to give it all away. I'm just saying that's what episode 1 was about. Did I give it all away? Now you don't even have to hear it? Maybe. Apologies. Go back and listen to it anyway. But today we're going to continue on with one of the key concepts of creating peace in the pack. It's the big concept here. So the overarching concept of how I create peace in the pack. And if I had to sort of put words to it, it would be this. You need to honor each dog's individuality while keeping the whole thing under the umbrella of pro-social behavior, and pro-social as the goal. Now, we're going to cover sociality. These are all terms that I learned from my mentor, Nelson. And so we'll cover that in the next episode. We'll go a little bit deeper about that. But for now, it's just important to know that pro-social means we're better together. That when we work together, we work for the benefit of the pack, not the benefit of this individual dog, but the benefit of the pack. And so when we're talking about dogs being social, we actually don't want a social dog. We want a pro-social dog. We want a dog that is looking out for the betterment of the entire pack. So that's the foundational key to peace in a pack. This idea of honoring everybody's individuality while keeping them under the umbrella of pro-social behavior. So I want to start by, let's dig into how do we get this understanding of our dog's individuality, because the goal for this isn't about euphormity. Is that a word? Euphormity? Did I make that up? Is that a word? It sounds dumb. Euphormity? Yosemite? What am I saying? Someone tell me if that's a word. Euphormity? Anyway, we don't want everyone to be uniformed. We're talking about unity with the idea that everyone has their own individual genetic resumes, instincts, and social preferences. Okay, so let's start off with those genetic resumes. First and foremost, if you have a purebred dog, one of the things, and even if you think you know everything there is to know about your breed of dog, I want you to still do a double check, and we're going to Googles. We're going to use the Googles, the Googs. We're going to get the Googs out, or whatever social browser you use. We're going to Googles it. I want you to Google your dog's breed. And I want you to look up, usually the first thing that comes up is I don't know if it's the Wikipedia version or whatever it is, where it breaks down what the dog looks like and all that stuff. But there's a section there called characteristics. Click on that. And I want you to write down all the characteristics that the breed is known for. Now, you can agree or disagree with it, because as I've mentioned before, and I've told the stories before about we had the anti-Noof. We had her name was Berlin. We loved her. She was the anti-Noof. She was everything opposite of Noof. She was the least Noofy Noof that you've ever Noofed. So, and we also had the anti-Beagle. We had Soda, the anti-Beagle. I had so many people that came up and was your Beagle is still on your porch. And I'm I know. And they're doesn't it run away? And we're no. Sometimes it runs around in circles around the car. But other than that, that's it. So, So I want you to kind of go through what it is that's under characteristics of your dog. Pick out the ones that are true for your dog. And, you can question, be like, that's not really my dog. But I want you to start there. And if you have a mixed breed dog and you've done that, genetic DNA stuff, you don't have to go through all of them. Because sometimes when you get those genetic DNA stuff, it's like 2% Chihuahua. And you're like, okay. You're sitting there looking at this like, pit bull, mastiff mix or something. And it's like 2% Chihuahua. But go through that and find like, the prominent genetic resume that is in your dog. And I want you to go through the characteristics of it, because it's important for us to understand the character of your dog, the genetic resume, the instincts that are there. And sometimes, and I get everybody within my programs to actually do this work, because sometimes when we're getting frustrated with our dog's behavior, but when we realize that it's actually part of who they are, it gives us a little bit more understanding and takes away some of that frustration when you go, oh, I'm asking them to be something that they're not. I was talking about I was talking to my neighbor the other day, and they for the longest time had a German Shepherd on their property that barked all the time, and I know the family was getting very, very frustrated that he was barking all the time. And I kept on saying to them, like, he's doing his job. Like, he's a great dog. He is doing his job. Part of who he is to guard and warn you of interlopers on your property. And this is a very busy household, right? They have lots of cars coming and going. So yeah, it does seem like the dog's barking a lot, but you've got a lot of people coming and going. So when we get frustrated with a dog being who they are, it's really hard to ask a dog to stop being who you are. Stop being who you innately are. The stuff that's scripted in your genes, that's really hard. And then what I want you to do is, for those of you who have taken the Dogonality quiz, I want you to go back to those emails that I sent you. Now, if you're sitting here going, what quiz, Tracy? There's a quiz? I love me a good quiz. You can take the quiz, my friend. You can take the quiz. Go to beyondobedience.ca/quiz. Take that quiz. Okay, it's a Dogonality quiz. After the quiz, you're going to get a series of emails from me that kind of break down all the different things about your dog's unique Dogonality. And so once you've done that, and if you've done it in the past, I want you to print out, if you're a pen and paper kind of person, if you're not and you have a computer log or whatnot, you can do that, captain's log. You can do that, but I'm a pen and paper person, so I like to print things out. And I want you to go through that. Also write in the margins of that information, because keep in mind, when I thought about these things, I was given a generalization of what each Dogonality was like. That's not going to necessarily be everything your dog is, and some of the things might not be how your dog acts. So I want you to make notes of that. And the whole purpose of all of this is to really get to know your dog, right? Really understand what's going on inside the mind of your dog. It's so beneficial, because when we talk about, again, this idea of understanding the individual underneath the umbrella of pro-social, it's going to help you not only see the dog in a different way, but also see how that personality relates to other personalities under this umbrella of pro-social. So we need to really get there first. So I'm going to just quickly, here's some things I want you to write down, like stuff like what lights your dog up, what stresses them out, how do they like to interact or not, what are their favorite games, what are their affection preferences, all of these things. Write down as much stuff as you can about that. Go through the Dogonality profile, write down notes on the side, do all of those things, because it's going to come into play as we work through all the different personality stuff. So every dog has their own Dogonality, right? We want to make sure that we're honoring it. So like very quickly, I wasn't necessarily going to do this, but let's do it real quickly. For example, when we're talking about the Dogonalities, okay, there's 5 different Dogonalities that you can get when you take that quiz. And I will say this, by the way, I don't know if you know this, by the way, if you took the quiz and you're like, that's not my dog at all, she is way off the mark. I want to remind you, when you take the Dogonality quiz, you need to answer the questions as if you have not done any training. So in particular, anytime people have reached out to me to be like, this wasn't my dog at all, and we kind of talk it through a little bit, it's always been the same thing. They'll answer the question of what the dog is doing now, but they trained the dog. Like, for example, if your dog used to always like bolt out the door as soon as you open the door, they ran outside and was like, woohoo, like gone. And you've worked really, really hard to train your dog threshold work where you're like, if the door is open, you're not allowed to go until I tell you to go. You have to answer that question before you trained them. What was their innate response to being like let out into the environment? If were they out hunting, seeking, searching, then you have to write that down. Don't answer it as if you've already done all the training. Answer as if before you've done the training. So if you've done that though, and you still disagree with it, then contact me and let's talk about it. And maybe there's a different Dogonality for your dog. All right, let's just quickly go through it just really, really quickly. If you're new, you haven't heard of this before. Dogonality is based on a quadrant. We have left brain and right brain. Left brain means thinking. Right brain means instinctual. Again, all this will make sense if you take the quiz. beyondobedience.ca/quiz. Okay. So we have left brain and right brain, and then we have introvert, extrovert. So introvert moves their feet, introvert doesn't move their feet, extrovert moves their feet. That's a very simplistic way of putting it, but that's how we do it. All right. So if we have a left brain introvert, a thinking dog that doesn't move their feet, these guys are like really steady, thoughtful. They're great for as a calming presence for a higher strung dog or a fearful dog. That's why we have Noose. We had 12 Noofs because they were great at helping dogs that were struggling with that. So they're very steady and thoughtful. They can sometimes appear stubborn. However, they can also be the problem. And people are often shocked about this, but they can also be the problem. If they're sitting in the corner just, eyeballing other dogs and making dogs uncomfortable, they can also be the problem. So they're not always they're not always innocent. Left brain extrovert. So those are your thinking dogs, but they move their feet. Those are like your border collies, your shepherds, like all of those kind of dogs. Working dogs in general tend to be left brain extroverts. These are confident. They thrive on engagement. But they can also test the boundaries. These kind of dogs can be a bit much for a more sensitive right brain dog, right? And if we have a dog that's like that, that's around a dog that's really struggling with all of those things, this can cause unnecessary tension. So that's why we need to know about them, right? Right brain introvert, these are dogs that are instinctual. They don't like to move their feet, so they tend to be in fear where they're like frozen, and they have very, very low confidence. They're quick to react, easily overstimulated, and these guys can really struggle with, we like to call them Tarzan dogs, but these are the Tarzan dogs that have no boundaries. So if you've got a really sensitive RBI in your pack and you've got a dog that's like, hey, you want to play, you want to play, you want to play, you want to play, that's going to cause tension. Right? We need to be aware of that. And then we have our right brain extroverts. We break them up into two. Right brain extrovert that's unconfident. These are your overwhelmed runners. So these are the guys that run first, think later, right? They get scared, they run. They're quick to react. They're easily overstimulated. They need rituals and all of that sort of stuff. These guys here are going to struggle with a lot of activity. And so if you've got like a high energy pack, they're going to be like, too much, right? And then when we go to our right brain extroverts that are confident, these guys are your fearless explorers, we called them. And they're hunting, seeking, searching. They're all about the environment. They quite often forget about the fact that they're in a pack, right? Because they're all about like, I'm just hunting, I'm just doing stuff. So they can also cause problems. So all of the different things have their pluses and their minuses, but it's important to know what is your dog's Dogonality. So that's your homework for today. I really want you to really get to know your dog. So there's a couple things. Take the quiz. If you haven't taken it, take the quiz, get the emails, make some notes on those emails when you get them. Is this correct? Is this right on? Is this not really your dog? Then I want you to take it one step further, do the Googles, find out that, the characteristics of your dog's breed or breeds. Excuse me. If you have a mixed breed, I want you to think about like what parts of your dog's behavior, then now knowing the characteristics of each breed, what parts of your dog's behavior is, that breed expressing itself. For example, and I've talked about this guy a lot and I miss him. We had Apollo, who was a pit bull greyhound mix. So, I used to always make the joke because he was tall and lean and lanky like a greyhound, but he had a slightly bigger head. So he had like a pit bull head. And I used to make the joke, if you ever thought you could outrun a pit bull, now you can't. Because that dog could run like the wind. Like he was just so amazing. And so that, the running and the speed came from the greyhound, but the absolute intensity to do everything came from the pit bull, right? Like he did everything 150%. And that meant like when he was loving you 150%. Like he was incredible. Anyway, so I want you to just kind of do your research, take some time and really look at, and if you only have one dog, you can do this as well. I'm not saying like this is only for people that have multiple dogs. Do this if you have one dog. Do the homework. Really figure out everything about your dog, from its dogonality to the breed characteristics, to, well, everything else. Like, what are the things that your dog likes? What are the things that your dog doesn't like? Even if it seems silly, write it down. Like I had a Doberman that hated the rain, right? He used to look like we were like torturing him if we asked him to go out for a pee when it was raining, like write down everything, all the quirks, all the little funny things. My dog loves it when, I rub his toe beans. I don't know. Like whatever your dog loves, write down everything that you can, because next episode, we're going to be talking about sociality. We're going to be talking about those different categories of sociality and why it matters when it comes to integrating dogs. And we'll get into all of that there. So there you go. That's your homework. I left you with a lot of homework today, but get on it. It doesn't have to be done by Thursday, by the way, like in 2 days. You can take your time with this. Again, this is going to be a series. We're going to figure out, I don't even know how many episodes are in this series. It's going to be a series. We're just going to keep talking about it until we can't talk about packs of dogs anymore. How about that? All right, that's your homework. I got to go. If you like this kind of thing, please do me a favor. Share it with another dog-loving friend that wants to have a truly bonded, connected, easy relationship with their dog. Give me a 5-star written review on Apple. Really helps push this podcast out to more and more people. And as always, get out there today, my friend, and be the person your dog thinks you are. Because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and is not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.